Hello dear students, welcome back to another video lesson. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Today we will be doing the last chapter from class 12 Alternative English Pro section, the last lesson written by Alphonse Daudet. So let's get to know something about the author. Alphonse Daudet was a French novelist and short story writer. Formerly a school teacher, he quit it to make a living as a journalist. He took to writing, and then his poems collected into a volume called Les Amoureuses. Now let's get to know about the background of the story as well, the last lesson, So the last lesson narrates about the year 1870, 1870, when the Prussian forces under Bismarck, Bismarck was the leader of Prussia at that time. Under Bismarck, attacked and captured France, and the French districts of Alsace and Lorraine went into the Prussian hands, Now the new Prussian rulers discontinued the teaching of French in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Since they have captured the districts of Alsace and Lorraine, now they will be dominating the place and they will not allow to speak, they will not allow the people to speak in French anymore, Now let's begin with the content of the short story. The narrator of the story is a young schoolboy named Little Franz, And he's a young school-going boy in this story. So it begins this way, There was this particular morning, That particular morning, Franz, this little Franz was scared to go to school as he was already late, He was already late for school. And also their teacher's name is Hamel, So Hamel, he announced the previous day that he would test them or he would, ask them questions on participles. And Franz did not know anything at all, He did not know anything at all, and so he was more scared, of being scolded by the French teacher, Now, Franz has another option in his mind, So that is to miss school, and then enjoy the day out in the warm and bright weather. So the weather was very tempting for him. He was thinking, instead of joining, going and attending the school or the class, he thought of enjoying the warm and bright weather outside. He describes the scene outside, So this is how he described it. There were birds chirping on the edge of the woods, and then the noise of the Prussian doing the drill behind the sawmill could also be heard. And now the scene outside was more attractive than the school, But little Franz, he controlled the temptation and chose to attend school. As Franz walked past down the town hall, he noticed a huge crowd, at the notice board. Now, the war, the war with Prussia had began 2.5 years ago. And since then, all the bad news, all the bad news like losing the war, occupation of Alsace and Lorraine by the enemy means the Prussian, etc., had been communicated to the people through the bulletin board, So Franz was, wondering what could be the news this time, because whatever news has been put up on the bulletin board was all bad news. No news was good news, Now Franz kept on walking to school and thought in his mind, that what news it could be or what news it could have been, put up at the board at that time. And now, as he walked hurriedly towards the school, the blacksmith, who was also reading the news and came along with his trainee, with his apprentice, called out to Franz, all right? He called out to Franz from behind and told Franz that, he need not, go in such a hurry, as there was plenty of time for him to reach school. Then Franz thought that the blacksmith was making fun of him, because he knows that he himself knows that he was already late for school. So he thought that the blacksmith was making fun of him because he was late for school. He was out of breath, okay? When he reached the garden outside the school, he was out of breath, and that was because he walked very fast, all right? Now, Franz, he describes the usual scene at the school, that is in the morning. So usually in the morning, a lot of noise, used to be created by the moving of the desks, and then children repeating their lessons in unison, and the teachers striking the iron ruler, on the table could be heard. That is the usual, regular thing every morning. But that day was unusual, all right? Unusual as there was no such sound, and it seemed as if it was like a Sunday morning because it was very quiet, okay? So Franz, he peeped inside the class and saw his classmates already seated in their own place, all right? And he also saw that their French teacher, that is Hamel, was already, with his iron ruler under his arm and then walking in the class. Now Franz, he feared being scolded by the teacher, okay, by his teacher, that is Hamel, as he had, to enter the classroom in front of everyone, all right? And he was scared because he knows that Hamel would definitely scold him, all right? But when Franz entered the classroom, he found it strange, because Hamel did not say anything to him. On the contrary, Hamel politely told little Franz to go to his seat, to go and take his seat, as the class was about to begin without him. So Franz hurried, to his seat, overcoming his fear and making himself comfortable, all right? He noticed that their teacher, Hamel, was wearing his best clothes. And those best clothes were, a beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, and black silk cap, okay? And that cloth, the teacher used to normally wear it on inspection and prize days only. So Franz was wondering what's the occasion on that day, because there was nothing like inspection or prize days, okay? Now he was also surprised to see the back benches that were always empty were occupied by the village people. That includes old Hose, former mayor, former postmaster, and several others besides that, okay? So usually the back benches used to be empty, all right? But on this particular day, it was all filled by the village people, okay? Now little Franz was confused and could not figure out what was happening that day, all right? So just then, Hamel announced that it was their last lesson because Oder had come from Berlin only to teach German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, all right? And from the next day onwards, their German teacher will be coming to teach them in German. That is in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Now the German teacher would arrive the next day onwards. And since it was their last lesson in French, Hamel wanted them to pay attention, okay? Now Franz was shocked to know that he could not, learn French anymore or any longer. And now he knew the latest news that had been put up at the bulletin board of the town hall. Remember, Franz was on the way and he saw a large crowd, right? And he was wondering what the news could be, right? So now he came to know that the news was about, the last lesson of French class, all right? Till now, Franz considered his books to be, an unwanted burden. But suddenly, he starts considering them as his best friends, all right? The news that their teacher was going away or leaving, the school made him sad, and he no longer thought the teacher to be, short-tempered and strict. All right. Now, Franz know that Hamel was wearing his best clothes in honor of his last lesson. All right, and he also realized that the village people, all right, who came and occupied the back benches, they also came to pay respect and thank Hamel for his service of 40 years in the school. The teacher then calls out to Franz as it is his turn to recite the participles. Remember, right? Franz's teacher told them that he would ask questions on participle, right? So now it was Franz's turn to recite the participle. But you know that Franz did not know the lesson, right? So from the first word itself, he got confused, all right, and stood quietly. His heart was beating fast and did not dare to look or face his teacher. But Hamel said to Franz that he would not scold him, okay? He would not scold him as now he had realized his mistake. Had it been other days, little Franz would definitely get scolding from his teacher for not learning his lesson, all right? But now, every day, they would say themselves, I'll learn tomorrow, but that tomorrow is never going to come now, because tomorrow means the next day onwards, they will be taught only in German. Okay, Hamel said that all the people of Alsace were to be blamed, and no one was serious towards learning. Okay, everyone was equally responsible for not learning their French lesson. All right, he tells the class that their enemies, that is the Prussians, all right, would laugh at them, saying that they only showed to be Frenchmen as they can neither speak nor write their own language. It is such a shame. You are only a French by name because you don't know how to read and write your own language. All right. So Hamel says that Franz's parents were not interested in getting him educated. Instead, they would send little Franz's parents will send him to the mill, to work at a farm and then earn some extra money. So earning some extra money was more important than sending their kids to school. He says that as a teacher, he was also, not interested in teaching sometimes, all right? So what he does is, when he's not interested, he would send his students to his garden to water his plants. Or sometimes, if he would want to go for fishing, he would declare holiday, all right? That was how it went. Now, Hamel praises, their mother tongue, that is French language, saying that French language is the most beautiful, the clearest, and the most logical language in the world. He tells the class to guard their language as it is the only way to free oneself from the prison of slavery. Okay? So, knowing one's mother tongue is a tool or weapon to fight domination. The teacher took a lesson in grammar. That day, Franz was surprised that he understood the lesson with ease. Hamel also explained the lesson with so much patience. All right. Now, Franz felt that the teacher wanted to give them all the knowledge before leaving the school. Okay. So after grammar, they had a lesson in writing. So the entire class was busy writing, okay? Everyone was focused on their writing. And the only sound that they could hear was the writing, on the paper, okay? Now the coo sound of the pigeons could be heard. And Franz wondered if the Prussians, would force the pigeons also to change their language and coo in German. Because this innocent little Franz, all this time he was thinking that the pigeons were cooing in French, all right? So he was wondering if the Prussians would even force the pigeons to coo in German, all right? Now, in between the writing, little Franz, looked at Hamel, who sat still and noticed that Hamel wanted to memorize everything, memorize the appearance of everything before leaving. Okay? Now, after writing, they had a lesson in history that was followed by phonetics, where they recited the sounds of alphabets. So here, little Franz called the village people, those grown-up peoples, as babies because they're learning their alphabets only now. Okay. Now, Franz had mixed feelings. Okay, at that time, he found it funny to see how an old man like Hauser was crying, all right, and trembling, and on the other hand, he also felt emotional like Hauser did. Just then, the clock at the church struck 12, okay, and the prayer song began. At the same moment, the sound of the trumpets played by the Prussian soldiers who were returning from the drill were heard. Hamel's face, became dull and colorless at the same time. And at this time, he, as the time come for the class to get over, he stood straight and motionless, and Franz said that, he had never seen Hamel, appeared to be so tall. Okay, now Hamel began to speak, okay, but something choked him and he could not continue. He wanted to say something, but he could not continue. So what he did was, since he was overpowered by his emotions, what he did was, he took a piece of chalk, all right, and wrote the words, Vive la France, okay, as large as he could on the board, all right. That means long live France, all right. Then he stopped writing. He could not write any further, all right. He stopped writing and leaned against the wall. And without saying a word, he gestured the class to leave as the class was over. So, with this, we come to the end of our lesson. I hope you all had a fun time, learning the lesson with me. And this is the end of our chapter. We end by, the French teacher, Hamel, finishing up his last class. So dear students, with this we come to the end of our lesson. I hope you all had a fun time learning your lesson. Until then, stay safe.